Hi there. So, for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to yap about a very important passage in Romans. Romans 10 1 through 13, which reads, Brothers and sisters, my heart's desire and prayer to God for the Israelites is that they may be saved. For I can testify about them that they are zealous for God, but their zeal is not based on knowledge. Since they did not know the righteousness of God and sought to establish their own, they did not submit to God's righteousness. Christ is the culmination of the law, so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes. Moses writes this about righteousness that is by the law. The person who does these things will live by them, he says. But the righteousness that is by faith says, Do not say in your heart, Who will ascend to heaven? That is, to bring Christ down, or who will descend into the deep? That is, to bring Christ up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you, it is in your mouth and in your heart. That is, the message concerning faith that we proclaim. If you declare with your mouth, Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved. As Scripture says, anyone who believes in him will never be put to shame. For there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same Lord is Lord of all and richly blesses all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So that's the passage. Of course, reading it is never going to do us any good if we don't first understand it. A good way to understand a passage like this is by using the inductive Bible study method, which consists of 3 steps: observe, interpret, and apply. Observe is basically just reading the passage, taking it literally. Don't do anything fancy, just read it. Interpret is where the fancy stuff comes in. Now we take a step deeper into understanding what it means. And finally, application is like the aftermath, in a sense, of, well, now I understand. How can I use it? Basically means taking the passage and applying it to your own life. Observation. So before we observe this passage, we need to take a look at the background information, help us understand it better. This was a letter written by Paul to the church in Romania, and its purpose was to encourage the church in their Christian faith. My summary of the passage would be something like this. Paul begins by telling the Romans of his prayer that the Israelites would come to be saved. He then elaborates into how to become saved, talking about what Moses writes about righteousness through good works, versus what Jesus did, making it possible for us to gain righteousness through faith. It then ends with a very important verse in the Bible, Romans 10:13, which says, For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Interpretation. Now we start digging in the deep stuff, in the sense of what Paul means when he writes this. My interpretation of this is that he basically is stating what has been said many times throughout the Bible, and is no less important than the number of times it's been said. He is emphasizing the need for Jesus, because we cannot be saved by our works. Our good deeds do not deem us righteous in the eyes of God, but faith through Jesus can. Is literally the only way to be saved, and that is what Paul is trying to teach the church in Romania. Finally, application. This is where we think about how we can apply this passage and its meaning to our own lives. One way I can definitely apply this to my life is the constant need to prove myself. When I do something wrong, I'm always looking for a way to make it right. Even the score, in a sense. Like trying to prove myself to so many people, I too sometimes try to prove myself to God. Sometimes I doubt that my faith is worth anything. Sometimes I doubt I have good faith at all. Sometimes I think, telling him that I have faith isn't good enough. I have to prove it to him by showing him I have faith. This is what Paul is trying to say. Works and good deeds get you nowhere in terms of righteousness, but by faith alone we are saved. Okay, I guess that was only 5 minutes. Well, have a nice day.